There is something about light that nobody ever tells you in school, and it is one of the most bizarre and beautiful facts in all of physics. Light, this thing that lets you see the world, this messenger that carries color and warmth and information across the entire universe. Light does not experience time, not slow time, not fast time, zero time. From the moment a photon is born, whether it travels for a nanosecond across a room or for 13 billion years across the entire cosmos, it arrives at its destination having experienced absolutely no duration whatsoever. None. The clock for light simply does not tick. And when you really sit with that, when you really let it sink in, it starts to feel less like a physics fact and more like some kind of philosophical explosion. Because what does it even mean to exist and yet have no experience of time passing? That is what we are going to figure out today. Now let me start where everyone starts, with the intuition that is wrong. You look at a car moving down a road and you think, okay, the faster that car goes, the more distance it covers in a given amount of time. Speed is just distance divided by time. Simple. So if you made the car go twice as fast, it covers twice the distance in the same time. That seems completely reasonable, and you might think, push it further, make it go really fast, enormously fast, close to the speed of light, and the same rule applies, just bigger numbers. But here is where nature does something absolutely devious. It turns out that speed does not work the way you think it does. The universe has a rule, a deep rule, not an arbitrary rule somebody made up, but something woven into the very fabric of how space and time are connected. And that rule is this: there is a maximum speed, not just a practical maximum, not just an engineering challenge, but an absolute cosmic speed limit, and it is the speed of light. Now, why should there be a maximum speed at all? That already seems strange. Why would the universe bother with a limit like that? Well, the answer comes from Einstein, but it really starts with something much simpler, something about the nature of cause and effect. If you could send information faster than light, you could, in principle, send a message into your own past. Not metaphorically, literally, and that creates logical contradictions so severe that the universe simply does not permit it. The speed limit is not a mechanical limitation, it is a logical necessity for a universe that wants to be consistent with itself. Feynman actually talked a lot about this idea that the laws of physics are not just rules somebody scribbled down, they are the universe being forced to be self-consistent. The speed of light is part of that self-consistency. But here is the part where it gets really interesting. To understand why light is trapped in time, you have to understand what special relativity actually says about space and time. And it says something extraordinary. It says that space and time are not separate things. They are two aspects of a single four-dimensional thing called space-time. And every object in the universe, you, me, the chair you are sitting in, the coffee getting cold on your desk, every single object is moving through this four-dimensional space-time at exactly the same total speed. Always. The speed is always the same. It is the speed of light. Let me slow down on that because it sounds crazy and I want you to really get it. Right now you are sitting still, right? You are not moving through space, or at least not very fast relative to the room you're in, but according to special relativity you are still moving. You are moving through time. Every second you are traveling 1 second into the future. And in terms of the geometry of space-time, that motion through time has a certain rate. Now imagine you start moving through space. You get up and walk across the room. Now some of your motion is directed through space, but your total speed through space-time stays constant. It always equals the speed of light. So something has to give. If you are now using some of your motion budget for space, you have less left over for time. Your clock, compared to someone who is sitting still, ticks slightly slower. This is not a metaphor. This is measurable. This is what we call time dilation. And we see it in particle accelerators. We see it in GPS satellites. We measure it every single day. Now take this to its logical extreme. What if you directed all of your motion through space, every single bit of it, and none through time? What would happen? Well, your clock would stop completely. You would be frozen in time, and it turns out that is exactly what light does. A photon moves through space at the maximum possible speed, at the full speed of light, and therefore it has zero motion left over for time. The photon's clock never ticks. It is, in a very real sense, trapped outside of time, born and destroyed in the same eternal instant from its own perspective. Now here is an analogy that I think helps. Imagine you have a car, and this car can go exactly 60 miles per hour, no more, no less. Always 60. Now you are driving north. All 60 miles per hour are going north. But now you turn and drive northeast. Well, now some of that 60 miles per hour is going north and some is going east. You are covering less ground to the north per hour than before. The total speed is still 60, but it is split between two directions. Space-time is like this, except the two directions are space and time. And a photon is the car that is pointing completely in the space direction. So it has nothing at all pointing in the time direction. What does it feel like to be that photon? Well, nothing. That is the honest answer. The photon has no experience. It does not feel trapped. It does not feel anything. But here is the philosophical kicker from the photon's frame of reference. If you were somehow able to ride along with a photon, which you cannot, but if you could, you would find that the distance between the place the photon was emitted and the place it is absorbed is zero. Not small, not tiny, but exactly zero, because the length contraction that goes along with time dilation is total. The entire universe, from the point of emission to the point of absorption, would be squashed down to a single point. The photon does not travel across the universe. For the photon, there is no across, there is no distance, there is no time. It simply exists, frozen in the eternal now, connecting two events that, from its perspective, are the same event. This is deeply strange. I mean genuinely philosophically strange. We usually think of travel as implying a journey, a passage, a duration. But light travels billions of light years and experiences none of that. The starlight hitting your eye right now was emitted from a star that might have died 1,000,000 years ago, and during that entire 1,000,000-year journey, the photon experienced nothing. No boredom, no aging, no change. Just the same frozen instant stretched across what we, with our time-experiencing brains, perceive as 1,000,000 years. Now let me bring in the quantum picture, because this makes it even stranger and more wonderful. In quantum mechanics, a photon is not just a little ball shooting through space. It is a quantum of the electromagnetic field, a bundle of excitation, and its behavior is described by something called quantum electrodynamics, or QED. And in QED, something remarkable happens. A photon does not just travel in a straight line, it explores all possible paths simultaneously. Feynman himself developed the path integral formulation of quantum mechanics, and what he showed is that a particle, including a photon, takes every conceivable path between 2 points. It goes through your kitchen, it loops around Saturn, it goes backward in time, it takes every path. And then all of these paths interfere with each other like ripples in a pond. Most of the paths cancel out, and the paths that survive, that reinforce each other, those are the paths we observe. And for light, the path that survives, the path where all the nearby paths agree and reinforce, that is the path where light travels in a straight line at the speed of light. This is an absolutely gorgeous idea. The photon is not trapped in the sense of being forced along one path. It is freed to explore all paths, but the exploration itself, through the mathematics of interference, produces what looks like a single path. The straightness of the beam of light is not a constraint imposed on the photon. It is the emergent result of the photon being completely free to explore all of space-time. And here is where the title really bites. Why is light trapped in time? It is trapped in time precisely because it is moving at the maximum possible speed through space. It has spent its entire space-time velocity budget on spatial movement. But I want to argue that trap is maybe the wrong word. A better word might be liberated. Because for the photon, there's no passage of time and therefore no decay, no aging, no loss. A photon emitted at the beginning of the universe, if it has not been absorbed yet, is just as fresh, just as energetic, just as perfectly itself as the moment it was created. It does not get tired. It does not degrade. Time, which for us is the thing that erodes everything, does not touch it. Now there is a deeper question lurking here, and it is the one that I think is really at the heart of what makes this fascinating. Why does light travel at that particular speed at exactly 299,792,458 meters per second? Why not faster? Why not slower? And the honest answer is, we do not fully know. We know that the speed of light emerges from the fundamental constants of electromagnetism, from the permittivity and permeability of free space. Maxwell showed this in the 1800s, before Einstein was even born. He worked out the equations for electric and magnetic fields, and when he solved those equations for waves, he found that the waves travel at a speed that depends on these constants of nature. And when he calculated it, he got the speed of light, which told him, and this is one of the greatest intellectual moments in the history of science, that light is an electromagnetic wave. But why do those constants have those values? That we do not know. This is one of those places where physics runs up against a wall, and the honest scientist says, "I do not know," and that is okay. That is where the next discovery is hiding. Feynman was always very clear about this. The pleasure is not in having the answer. The pleasure is in the searching, in the not knowing, in the delicious uncertainty of it. The value of the speed of light is one of those wonderful mysteries where we can describe what it does completely and precisely, and yet we cannot tell you why it has that value. Maybe someday we will understand that from some deeper theory. Maybe a theory of quantum gravity will explain it. But right now it sits there as a given, as one of the parameters of our universe that the universe simply chose, and which we are stuck with and grateful for. Now let me talk about what happens when light moves through a medium, like glass or water, because there is something here that sounds like a contradiction, and it is actually beautiful. You have probably heard that light slows down in glass. When a beam of light enters a glass lens, it slows to about 2/3 of its speed in vacuum. And that slowing is what causes refraction, that bending of light that makes lenses work and prisms split white light into rainbows. But here's the thing. Individual photons never slow down. Each individual photon always travels at exactly the speed of light. So how can light slow down in glass if photons never slow down? The answer is that when light enters glass, the photons are being absorbed and re-emitted by the atoms in the glass over and over again, countless times as they pass through. Each absorption and re-emission takes a tiny bit of time, and that accumulated delay, all those tiny pauses while photons are briefly consumed and then regenerated by the electron clouds of atoms, that is what makes the effective speed of light through the glass slower. It is like trying to walk through a crowded room. You yourself can walk at a normal pace, but the constant stopping and starting to squeeze past people means your average speed across the room is much less than your walking speed. Each individual step is just as fast, but the net progress is slower. This distinction between the phase velocity of light in a medium and the speed of individual photons, this is a subtle and important thing, and it has a consequence that sounds absolutely wild. In some materials, you can have particles moving faster than the effective speed of light in that medium. Not faster than light in vacuum, that is still impossible, but faster than the slowed down light in the material. And when a charged particle does this, it produces a kind of electromagnetic shock wave, a cone of radiation just like the sonic boom from a supersonic jet. This is called Cherenkov radiation, and it is what makes nuclear reactor cores glow that gorgeous, eerie blue color. That blue light is literally the electromagnetic boom produced by electrons moving faster than light moves through water. It is one of the most beautiful phenomena in all of nuclear physics, and it is completely explained by this understanding of what light speed really means. So now let us come back to the central question with all of this in hand. The title asks about freedom. The secret will break freedom. What does that mean? I think it means this. We, as beings who experience time, feel a profound sense of constraint from time. We age, we forget, we lose things. Time moves in one direction and it drags us with it. We are not free from time. Time owns us. And in that context, light seems like a prisoner trapped in an eternal instant, unable to move through time, unable to experience duration or change. It seems like the most constrained thing in the universe. But flip it around. Really flip it around. It is we who are the prisoners. We are trapped in time, dragged through it at 1 second per second, unable to speed up, unable to slow down, unable to go back. Every moment we experience will be replaced by the next. We decay. We are bounded by birth and death. The photon, in its timeless existence, knows none of this. It is complete, whole, finished, perfect at every instant, because for it there is only one instant. The freedom we think we have by experiencing time, by moving through it, by narrating our lives as a story with a beginning and end, that is actually a kind of bondage. The photon, trapped in our time-filled perception, is actually the free one. And here is where the physics becomes philosophy, which is where Feynman always ended up eventually, because the good questions always go there. What would it mean for a conscious being to exist outside of time? What would experience be like without the arrow of time, without before and after, without memory and anticipation? We cannot really imagine it because our minds are time machines. We are built for sequential experience. We are narrative creatures. The photon is not narrative. It simply is. The entire universe from its perspective, from the moment it is emitted to the moment it is absorbed, is one single event. Not a journey, one event. There is something almost mystical about this, and I say that as someone who believes that physics is already mystical enough without adding anything extra. The fact that the universe has these two kinds of existence, time-bound and timeless, and that both are happening simultaneously, and that they are fundamentally the same substance, space-time, just oriented differently, just moving through space-time in different directions, that is extraordinary. That is the kind of thing that makes you stare at the ceiling at 2 in the morning and feel genuinely lucky to be alive and curious. Now there is one more piece I want to add because it connects all of this to something even bigger. The constancy of the speed of light, the fact that every observer in the universe, no matter how fast they are moving, measures the same speed of light. That is not just a weird fact. That is the cornerstone of special relativity. Einstein started from exactly that observation, from the experimental result of Michelson and Morley, who tried to measure the motion of Earth through the supposed ether by looking for changes in the speed of light, and found none. Light always went the same speed regardless of which direction you were going or how fast. And Einstein said, okay, take that seriously, take it as a fundamental truth and see what follows. What follows is the entire structure of special relativity, time dilation, length contraction, the equivalence of mass and energy, all of it falls out of that one assumption. The constancy of the speed of light is not just a curiosity, it is the thread you pull on that unravels the entire tapestry of classical physics and reveals the far more beautiful and bizarre reality underneath. And then general relativity extends this to gravity. Gravity is not a force in the Newtonian sense. Gravity is the curvature of space-time itself. Mass bends space-time, and objects, including photons, follow the straightest possible paths through that curved space-time. Light bends around stars not because gravity is pulling on it, but because space-time itself is bent, and the straight lines through bent space-time are curved. We have measured this. We photograph it. The way massive galaxy clusters bend and distort the light from objects behind them like enormous cosmic lenses. Every photograph of a gravitational lensing event is a direct picture of bent space-time. And this is where the trap metaphor really breaks open. Light is not trapped in time by some external cage. Light is what it is because of the geometry of space-time. It is not imprisoned. It is geometrically constrained in the most elegant way possible, the way a circle is geometrically constrained to have all its points equidistant from the center. The constraint is not a punishment, it is the definition. Light at the speed limit of space-time is not less than what it could be, it is exactly what it must be. It is the messenger that space-time uses to communicate between events. It is the link. Every cause and every effect in the universe are connected by chains of photons. Your eyes see this page because photons carry the information from it to your retina. Every piece of information in the observable universe has been carried at some point by light or by something constrained by the speed of light. The universe is not just illuminated by light, it is organized by it. The speed of light is not just a speed, it is the scaffolding on which causality itself is built. And so when you ask why light is trapped in time, the real answer is this: light is not trapped in time. Light is free from time, and we perceive that freedom as a trap only because we are so deeply embedded in our own time-bound existence that we cannot imagine what genuine timelessness would feel like. The photon is the universe's way of connecting past and future, cause and effect, here and there, without itself being subject to any of those distinctions. It is the ultimate messenger precisely because it stands outside the message. It carries information about time without experiencing time. It bridges distances without traversing them. That is the secret. The secret that breaks freedom is the realization that what we call freedom, the freedom to move, to age, to change, to experience, is itself a kind of constraint, and what looks like a constraint, being frozen outside of time, is itself a kind of freedom so total that we do not even have words for it, because every word we have was invented by creatures who are deeply, hopelessly, wonderfully trapped in time. Just like us, sitting here, trying to imagine the life of a photon, and in the imagining learning something true and strange and marvelous about the universe we live in.